Welcome, all your lords, doffs, acolytes, and apprentices, to the first A Sith Lord Plays This chat, live chat on my Twitch channel. Glad you have here. Thank you. Um, as always, this is going to be a Ask Me Anything portion of the show. Well, actually, the whole chat's going to be Ask Me Anything. There's only two rules they have to follow: is no politics and no religion. We won't be talking about any of that stuff here. I can go on and on about that kind of stuff for hours on end, but we'd rather keep this straightforward, talking about random subject matters and topics. I have a bit of a script that I got going on that will help me guide through the rest of this chat. So here we go. Gonna get this off to a good start here. So this will be about different talking points, anything that comes to my mind or anything that I have on the script. We'll be discussing random things. Your chats will appear in the box to the that way. They'll be appearing right over there in the box inside. They will be there for a long time until they eventually get to the top of the screen. The more you talk, the more they'll show up there so the viewer can understand who I'm talking to. Obviously, if you want to say hi or ask a question, I'll get to them as soon as I can. I also see them on my little chat box on my Twitch screen right now. But other than that, we'll get started. So I'd like to start out with the history of my gaming lifestyle. So I've been playing video games for about 35 plus years, I want to say. I was a little kid when I got the Nintendo Entertainment System. So yeah, I'm in my 40s, and I've played the original Nintendo Entertainment System with games like Dr. Mario, the original Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, Tetris, um, Duck Hunt, Kirby's Adventure, games like that. I played with that for several years. It moved into my parents' basement after high school, and then eventually I sold the system to somebody who was looking for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I needed the cash at the time, which I know it's a bad way to end a system that started out your gaming lifestyle. But I don't really have use for these kind of things. I don't collect this kind of stuff. I played them. They were a moment in my life, and that moment is gone, and it's probably never going to come back. I mean, even getting rid of the NES games I had, I just felt like I never really needed them anymore. In fact, the only cool thing I had is back in the '90s. All the rage throughout town were video game companies, or not video game companies, but like rental places. And there was a local one a long time ago that I don't even know if I have the picture anymore. It might be long since deleted. Oh, nope, still have it. Okay. So a long time ago, we bought some of the videos from video games left over from their going out of business sale, and one of them they had was apparently a collector's item, and I sold it on eBay for about $200. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this video game right here, yeah, that if you ever find the blue copy of Menace Beach for the NES, it can net you quite a bit of cash on eBay. So I sold that on eBay for $200, and it was probably the coolest thing ever. Because originally I was trying to sell it on another site for like dirt cheap, and like, dude, you should pull that right away. You're gonna be wishing you hadn't sold that for cheap as you did, because you'd kick yourself in the butt. You sold that cheap game for like that could be worth $200 for like $20. It's like, oh man, thanks for helping me, man. Yeah, no problem. But anyways, that was the NES series in the '90s, and eventually in '91, I believe, I got the Super NES with Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. No, that was a Game Boy game. Link to the Past. That's it. That game was kind of a challenge. Not gonna lie, not my favorite Zelda game, not by a long shot. But it was one of the games I grew up with, and obviously Donkey Kong Country 2 and 1. Those were two of my classic games. Donkey Kong Country 2 is probably my favorite SNES game of all time. I love the music. I just love the bonuses and so forth. I love everything about that game. And it stuck with me a lot growing up. trying to get the music and everything, and just just enjoying the game and the bonuses and the music. It was just the music, really. The music was just so much fun. And you can find all that music like on YouTube if you ever want to look up DK Country, Donkey Kong Country 2 music, Diddy's Conquest. DK1 was really good. That was the first game that I like literally played the heck out of too. And Earthworm Jim, kind of a goofy shooter game with one of the hardest water levels in the history of gaming. Uh, Not next close to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles level of frustration, but darn close. I will say this: it was a darn close, horrible level. And then growing up also in the '90s and mid '90s, you get the N64, which is probably probably voted the worst controller of all time. Excuse me. Uh, Wet my whistle here, but still, when you got games like Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, which was one hell of a game. I mean, I played the heck out of that. For that time, that game was just one of the better racing games that I've ever played at the moment. And then there was uh, GoldenEye. GoldenEye, my brother and I, we would play for hours on end. We was a day where I think we literally played for 12 hours. We just played multiplayer the whole time and was just so immersed in the game. We didn't know the time had passed. We were like, "Holy crap! Have we been playing this game for 12 hours?" Yeah, we were, and it was fun. And we also got Perfect Dark, and that game was amazing too. I mean, when you got, I don't even know if they have games that do that too much anymore. When you have AIs in them that actually interact and do things that you tell them to, and they attack you, and you can play solo multiplayer by yourself, and just play against the computer, just to tone your skills and everything. And it's crazy. I had a friend who literally would play as he would, if you played with him and he had a sim, he would play it with a pacifist sim. Now, the pacifist sim would run around, pick up all the items, and then he would come up and disarm you, which would disorient your vision and take your weapons away. He wouldn't kill you, but he would steal your items, and that was probably one of the dickest moves in video games I've ever had growing up. I mean, it was like, yeah, that's brilliant because your sim is basically a walking, just disabler. That's all he did was disable it. No other sim could do it as well as him. He could do the pacifist sim was pretty much the crazy, or he could even do unarmed sim if you want to. They're a little bit more aggressive, but the pacifist one would get ammo and guns intentionally just so that you couldn't pick them up, and then he would disorient you. So he'd sneak up behind you and disarm you, and then just run away. And he would be my friend would be right behind me, just shooting out the place. Oh, those are some memories, especially back in going back to Goldeneye with the golden gun. Oh my god, the man with the golden gun was probably one of the hardest challenges in the game because the person who had the golden gun was basically one shot you're dead, one shot you're dead. It was probably one of the cooler game mechanics in the time for N64. I mean, I played a lot of that game, Goldeneye, just hours upon hours. They don't have records like they do these days on Steam. Like I can look at my Steam library and see how many hours I've dedicated to these games, but I can't go back to like other games I used to play when I was a kid and see how many hours I logged in. I'm pretty sure if I had to look at my gaming hours, I'd probably say at least close to, if not more than 10,000 hours of gaming in my lifetime, maybe even more. I honestly don't have an accurate number right now. I mean, I see my Skyrim number as above 1,000, and my Borderlands about 500, Cyberpunk close to 800, I want to say, and you know, Star Wars: The Old Republic. I don't know how many hours I put in there. World of Warcraft. I don't know. I was playing off and on a little bit the past 5 years, but back in the 20s and early 2010s, I basically played that game nonstop. But I have this thing when it comes to playing video games that when it comes to RPGs, I have a tendency to get bored with the character and want to change it up a lot. So I have like alts and alts. And I was like, why don't you have a main character? Well, I get bored halfway through and want to do something else. My brain goes, hey, how about we try it this way? And it's like, dang it, I'm gonna have to do this all over again. So it just is a thing. I mean, I have some characters that are considered my mains, but hell, Star Wars: The Old Republic, I've had a lot of characters I could consider my mains, and they still go but reset them after a while. After Star Wars: The Old Republic did their big reset to allow you to choose what kind of classes you want. Basically, you could be if you wanted to be a Sith Lord, but you wanted to be a Juggernaut, but play through as um, in the Inquisitors lineup. You could do that, like Nevermari is. Nevermai is. She basically is the Sith Inquisitor storyline, but she is a Juggernaut class. But she does do lightning as well, but mostly with the Juggernaut. Um, Same goes for the tech classes. You could pick up you could be a sneaky smuggler if you want, the stealth one, or you could be a dual wielding smuggler or a sniper smuggler or sniper trooper or whatever you want to do with these classes. You can dual wield now, and it's like, well, crap. Why can't we just pay in game, not real money but credits to respec any class you want? Like, let's say you didn't like it. I don't want to have to delete my character over again just to start all over from scratch. I love this character. Now I got to do this all over again. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the stories, but there are times in Star Wars: The Old Republic where uh, it just gets boring. After you do your main storyline, you go to Ilum, and Ilum is, Ilum. I mean, it looks nice, but the story is kind of, I think it's because of, and this is BioWare's formula for the most part, most of their video games, is that they'll have overall like several different stories. Like you look at Dragon Age Origin, you get like three starter stories, I believe, three or four stars. You get the Elvish, the Mage, the Human, and the Dwarf. I think that's it. There's four stories. Four. And you get four of these stories, and after like the first chapter, they all merge into one. And it's like, well, it's the same story now. And in uh, Star Wars: The Old Republic, you get eight different stories, which they're not bad stories. They're all pretty decent. I mean, there's some that are more for me enjoyable than others, but the one that sticks out the most that is the basis of the whole game is really the Jedi Knight storyline. The other ones don't get that much front on there, but they do get some mentions and some callbacks. Like I was actually, when I was live streaming Star Wars: The Old Republic, the Knights of the Fallen Empire, and onward, um, I noticed some things that they actually didn't mention for the most time until you got to the later stuff where they mentioned, oh, by the way, I know you used to be a Sith Lord that could trap souls in your mind, and they mentioned that to Never Am I, and she'd be like, yeah, I know, I mean, I used to deal with stuff trapped in my head before, this is about the same thing, yada yada yada. And that's what and that was interesting, but they didn't really, they do that somewhat, but for the most part it's the same story. You're going to have the same lines of dialogue. You just got to choose which dialogue tree you want to do, or you want to choose which character gets to live and which character gets to die. It's not a bad game. I'm don't get me wrong, it's pretty good. So I mean, you can play it for free, which is which Star Trek Online, that's basically a free game. um Star Wars: The Old Republic is free up to level what, 60, and up to Knights of the Fallen Empire, which is pretty much good chunk of the game. It's the same stuff over and over again. So um by the way, I just want to repeat it again, this is also an AMA, so if you're online right now, just send a message and I'll reply to it as soon as I'm able. But back to Star Wars: The Old Republic, and BioWare games. There are parts in the game from Ilum to, well, basically to the newer stuff in the past 2 or 3 years. Like uh, after the Nephilim conspiracy, that's when things start getting a little bit more interesting again. And I know it's this whole game is basically based on what the Vitiate or Tenenbaum or whatever you want to call him, Valkorion, whatever you want to call him. This is all about him and the characters that surround his life. So it's going to be repeating over and over ad nauseum until you get tired of the same story. But it's still Star Wars and it's still fun to me. But we're going to go back to where we were beforehand about video games and my history of gaming. I had the Nintendo GameCube too growing up, and you know, the little box, and you know, one of my favorite games in that system was actually Mario Kart Double Dash, and it introduced me to one of my favorite racers of all time in Mario Kart. And this is gonna be the goofiest thing ever. It came out of a Sith Lord's mouth, but I like Daisy, the Princess Daisy. Don't know what it is about her. She's just different than Peach. I know she's more of a tomboyish, and personally, I do like women who are a little bit show a little bit more tomboyish, uh, personality traits. But I don't know. Something about the character was different than Peach. Maybe it was because she was in the original Super Mario Brothers movie. I don't know, but oh god, that movie. Oof. Oh boy. Anyways, so anyways, she's my favorite racer. I play the Mario Kart um, app that you get on your smartphone. You can play that too. It's free to play. There's no ads. You can buy stuff, but I haven't bought a single thing on that game. But it is definitely worth looking up if you have an app and you want to play Mario Kart anytime you want to. Hell, we can play multiplayer on it too. So it's it's out there. Go ahead and play the darn thing if you see it on the App Store. I'm not sure if it's an Apple app. I use a Google Play, but it's on there and it's free to play. So if you're a really big fan of Mario Kart, go play that app. They change the tracks every 2 weeks, so you get different tracks pretty much all the time. I mean, I see the same maps, but the track layout can be changed drastically if they want to. So they'll mirror the track, they'll add rails and so forth, or heights on them, or jumps, or things you'll see differently. It's a pretty cool app game, and it's free. Not a lot of good free games on the App Store much these days. Most of them come with ads, and I mean, I have tons of apps on my phone that I play. I play some games, I delete them, I come back to them, etc., etc. But you know, this little piece of technology here is pretty good for getting the job done, for keeping me a gamer in areas where I can't play video games. So I don't walk around with a Game Boy anymore, or Game Boy Advance, or PS Portable, or whatever the hell it is today that people have. I mean, they have a Steam mobile system, but I really can't afford something like that. You know, I'm not rolling the dough here. I'm not raking it in with 300 million subscribers in the bank or whatever, and a million followers, and income coming from Twitch. This is an amateur hour. Hell, I didn't even mention this in any of my Twitter posts today about me doing this stuff. I just mentioned in stuff down below saying at some point I'd like to be doing a live chats in the on air on the show, but this is the first time I've actually done it. So, and I'm not even in the third bullet point yet. I haven't even gotten to the other stuff yet in my whole gaming area, and I'm already 20 minutes in the stream. So, that's good news for me. I expected, not to be able to get too far, but maybe I'll start broadcasting this further. Maybe you'll see this stream after I've done posting it, and say, oh, hey, maybe I'll watch this. Maybe I'll watch the 40-year-old man talk about video games in his life for the past, you know, 30 years he's been playing video games. I'm not great. I'm not the best gamer out there. I just like playing it as a casual hobby. And you figure after so long, like, might as well just stream it, see if there's people who watch it. Now, granted, Borderlands 2 doesn't really get a lot of views because it's an older game. Skyrim got a lot of people. Hell, Star Trek Online is the only game I've played that's gotten a lot of followers from, and I've been rated in that game at least twice. Skyrim, not so much. What was between Star Wars? Oh, World of Warcraft. Hardly anybody showed up for that game. It's not really a popular game much anymore, but you're not going to see me play Fortnite in the near future. I mean, it might be a cool game, but it's just not something I play because it requires me to concentrate too much on the game. Whereas other games like, Borderlands, Star Wars, stuff like that don't require too much thought and more dialogue oriented. You'll see me, be able to interact with me. Skyrim's pretty good because I can pause the game. Same with Borderlands 2. You can just pause the game. Online games don't allow you to do that stuff. So, you can stop, but the cool thing about Skyrim is that I can stop the stream whenever I felt like it. So if I was in a dungeon and I'm halfway through and like, oh, look, time's up, time to call it a day, that's it. But you do that in like World of Warcraft or Star Wars or any other online game where you're stranded out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of quest, like, well, either A, you have 10 minutes left to stream. Either A, start the quest, or B, call it good and say, well, so much for the stream tonight, everybody. I usually go on over. I don't care. It's not like I'm waiting for, something to happen in the next 15 minutes or so after my stream. It's not a big deal. But as to back to the video game stuff, I have had the Wii and I didn't play anything much on that really. I mean, I played through um, Legend of Zelda. Um, what was it? Legend of Zelda. Twilight Princess. Yes, Twilight Princess. I played through that one. Ocarina of Time back on the 64 was probably the best Zelda game I've ever played. I've not played Breath of the Wild because I don't really own a Switch. I wanted to own a Switch during the pandemic, but I never really got around to buying one. I'm like, whatever. PC gaming has been my thing these past 7 years, 8 years of my life, really, maybe even 10 years. So, on that note, I've had the Xbox. I played the original Halo trilogy. I had the 360 as well, PlayStation 2 and a PlayStation 3. I really can't. Most of the PlayStation 3 games, I never really played a lot of. That's how I got into Fallout. Really, was from PlayStation 3. I bought Fallout 3 for the PlayStation 3, and it's fun on the game, but it kind of crashes after a while. It's like, well, Bethesda games, but I feel like console games for epic games like Cyberpunk or Fallout or Skyrim, not really the optimal playing platform in those kind of games. Now, I'm not sure how the PS5 is. I don't have a PS5. I probably never own a PS5 because when you play PC gaming, it's kind of hard to go back to console gaming. I mean, unless you're like Yahtzee Croshaw, who plays all these games and so forth, because he's big on the Escapist magazine and YouTube and all that. I mean, shout out to him. He's hilarious as hell whenever I get around to watching his critiques of video games. But I don't have that kind of funding. I'm not really loaded per se. My other job doesn't pay enough to make me get a lot of extra stuff. I mean, I can save up for extra stuff, but it's going to take a while. Now, granted, you could do GoFundMe's or I could start a Patreon, but I really don't have um, not really a lot of videos to start out. This is just more groundwork, really. This is behind the scenes stuff. This is the first video chat I've done for the channel, period. And, so far so good. I'm looking forward to eventually expanding my horizons by putting YouTube channels out there with more clips from the show or making my own produced videos for video essays or whatever it is I'm looking for. Video game reviews, that'd be perfect. Let's review this video game. Let's start with Star Wars: The Old Republic. How is it a video game? Rate it what I feel like, what's the strengths, what's the weaknesses, etc. Stuff like that. And if it gets maybe 100 views, that'd be great. Maybe I'll get another like or subscriber. I don't know. I'm trying, to gradually grow based on what I can do. Hell, I got these new emotes from doing two-factor authentication. I can't figure out where the hell they are. It's so bad. I am so old. I can't find where these things are. I'll have to look around again, but I really will try. I'm like, well, I know I saw them somewhere, but I just can't remember where. So at some point, I'll have to, go around either the website or the app I'm using right now and try to figure out exactly where these things are at. Um, Another thing I want to get going on back to video games is I want to talk about some of the games that I thought growing up were probably the best games I played at the time, and some things to remember. So one of the video games I played at the beginning was Dr. Mario. Um, it is like Tetris, but different. You have to match the colors to the viruses, and that was one game that I kind of wish I had growing up. The SNES version of Tetris versus Dr. Mario, because my brother was a dominant Tetris player at the time, and I was a dominant Dr. Mario player at the time. We probably would see how well that would have worked out. Going back and forth between playing Dr. Mario and Tetris. It's a fun game. The music was great. There wasn't much of a story. It's just Mario wanted to be a doctor, started throwing pills at viruses. Woohoo! Nothing really crazy about that. Then there were talks about other Dr. Mario games coming up, and you'll see him in Smash Brothers, Dr. Mario. You'll see him in Mario Kart too, and you know it was a fun one-off game. There's some jokes in there too. There's a comic out there where I think there's a comic out there where Dr. Mario just starts throwing pills in somebody's mouth and they die because he was like, "Oh, I thought you were a doctor. I'm not a doctor. It's me, Mario. I'm just a doctor of plumbing." Whatever. Anyways, another game and we're going back to is I've already explained. There's Donkey Kong Country 1. That was a fun game on the SNES. The graphics of the time were incredibly cool. The music, not bad. Just one hell of a game. And then DK Country 2. The whole game itself was just well done. It almost got me into actually designing video game art and designing video games themselves back in the 90s, but nothing really came of it. Nothing came of it. At one point I wanted to be a video game designer, artist, or whatever. That never really panned out too well either. Um, and then missed opportunities growing up in college, going to computer programming school, stuff like that. So, if you want to become something, do your best to try to do it. I mean, look at me. I'm dressed like a Sith Lord doing talking to myself on my channel for 60 minutes. I do what I want. Play my video games online so people can watch it. People can see what I'm doing, If they're interested, that's great. If they're not, all right. I don't expect my subscribers to, come back every day. Heck, I might not even hear from them ever again. Maybe everybody's got lives and everybody got things to do. I mean, I'm just doing it because I have nothing better to do right now. It's Friday night, the last 2 days of the year, and I'm talking about video games. I'm having a good time right now. This is fun. I love it. We'll talk about all my favorite video games. Hell, I talked about GoldenEye, playing the heck out of that. Perfect Dark, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, beautiful game. I love the music in that game. It is phenomenal. I mean, for an N64 game at the time, I played the heck out of it. I knew where every secret was. I knew how to get everything. I knew what order to do the temples in. I knew the War Temple fair enough a few times that maybe forgot about where things were and had to go back and reset the water level. But um, still, it was a fun game. I loved it. Beat Gandorf, etc. Just overall great game. There was a time actually when I was in college, I ran into another Legend of Zelda uh, fan, like hardcore fan, and I said to him one day, I said, the Zelda theme is not featured in the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. He's like, the hell are you talking about? It isn't. Then he looked it up and was like, my God, it isn't. I thought I knew everything about Legend of Zelda. Clearly I was wrong. So one summer, we decided for fun, because I had argued that the Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was longer than the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. He was like, "No, it's not." I'm like, We'll just try it out. Me and you. We'll both set up a game and press start at the exact same time and see what happens. Well, what happened was that in the first 10 minutes of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a cutscene, an unskippable cutscene that goes on while my friend gets through the opening dialogue and is already at the first castle, got his first sword and everything. It's like, oh my god. Well, I know how this is going to plan out. I had gotten to, I believe, halfway through the Fire Temple, which is the second dungeon in um, Link's future, the 7-year future gap. I had gotten to that, and he had already beaten the game, and I was like, wow. 12, it took him literally 7 hours to beat the game. It took me 12 hours to beat Ocarina of Time. He had time to literally play through their first Zelda game and complete it as well. And I'm like, damn, it was crazy as hell though. I mean, that was probably one of the cooler days in video game history for me, is going up against my friend, seeing who was the better Zelda nerd and which game was longer. And if I could redo that whole day, I totally would live that life a day over all over again. It was so much fun. Um, we'll move on to more recent systems. One of my favorite Xbox games, and you'll probably think it's probably the weirdest thing ever to say. I was a big fan of True Crime Streets of LA, and it's because that game was just so crazy, and it was fun in a way that it was it was the story was goofy and fun but serious, but at the same time you could do almost anything in that game once you knew what to do. And just I would go around in the bonus time where you would get like a whole hour of time to just free play, do whatever you want as Snoop Dogg. Yes, Snoop Dogg was in the game, and I would just go around and I would just start getting the cops to come up and see if the SWAT teams would come up, and the SWAT would come up and they try to shoot me down, and I would take them out, and it was so much fun because you got infinite ammo, and you could just screw around with the game like that, and the game would just keep sending cop after cop after cop, and it was just like a battle of wits to see how long I could survive until the timer ran out. Well, I wouldn't survive because they would eventually break the system and kill me. So it was a fun game. I played hours upon hours of that game. Um, I don't have it with me anymore, obviously, but it was a good game for its time in that it was a good for me. It probably wasn't the best overall, obviously, for the Xbox Series, but for me, it was a fun game. People put Halo up there. It's like Halo was fun, but I felt the game lost its edge for me when the flood came on. And then I was like, oh, this just became a zombie horror survival game, right? So that lost the fun out of the game for me. I mean, good versus. I mean, it's a switch of genre. Don't get me wrong, but then the whole story became the flood, the flood, the flood, the flood. Let's escape the flood. I don't know. I don't know. What I don't know. It's a fun game. Everybody likes a PvP. Red versus blue. Everyone remembers that in college growing up. Rooster Teeth doing the production of Red versus Blue was great. But then when it got to the newer stuff, the newer games, I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. Those are classic YouTube videos you can find somewhere online, probably on their official web channel if they're still around. Classic stuff there. And then, moving on to Diablo 2. That game I played the heck out of. I didn't play too much about StarCraft. It was mostly Diablo 2, playing LAN parties at my old college house, enjoying, stuff like that. But the problem was that people get all pissy when you start selling items. Like they find out you sold them. Like, hey, I could have used them. I don't know. But, I played Diablo 2 a lot, and Diablo 2 was a fun game to play. Um, World of Warcraft obviously took up a good chunk of my life and kind of caused a lot of issues growing up. A lot of time playing it, a lot less time doing education stuff. Don't let games take over your life unless that is what you want to do in life and you can make money out of it. Like if you want to be a professional Twitch person, then be my guest. spend time streaming video games all you want, enjoy them, but don't let it become a job, and don't let it hinder you from work and so forth, or relationships or education. Excuse me a second. There you go. Water break. It's dry around here. But yeah, playing World of Warcraft, from the beginning, almost to be great get go, maybe patch 1.5 or something. I can't remember. And you see how it's changed as a video game over the years, and people still play it. They've had issues, leadership issues, obviously, and other stuff like that, but people still line up to play the video game. I'm still playing it. I'll be streaming it here in like 2 or 3 months from now. The new stuff is still coming out with new content. That's crazy. You know, it's an old video game, but still, it still gets its numbers. It still gets its fans. It's there. I've had people tell me in the past, "Oh, there's a new MMO coming out. It'll knock World of Warcraft off its butt." Blah blah blah. And, well, World of Warcraft's still there, and there's a lot of online communities. You'd be surprised. Hell, even mobile games have huge online communities. It's crazy how many people are playing these games. You think you're like the only person playing it. Nope. There are hundreds of thousands more people playing it, so clearly it's still, around. But I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and I liked the original. I didn't really care for Burning Crusade. I just didn't like the color scheme, the reds and greens and so forth, and just the colors in general. Oh, I mean, the story was okay, but I just wasn't a big fan of it. And then Wrath of the Lich King was probably one of my favorite expansions at the time. I definitely loved the Death Knight. I thought it was a really cool class, but I really, really, really wanted a Necromancer. Necromancy is one of those classes that I love in most video games. It's just how it is, or any RPG in general. I like the idea of reanimating the dead and using them to fight for you as you cast spells in the background. There was a long time ago, there was a Mud, which is an old style game that kind of died out after World of Warcraft came out. It was an RPG you could play online, and it had a necromancer class, and you could, be a necromancer. It was text based, so you don't have to imagine this stuff, but any RPG that allows me to be a necromancer is great. Closest thing you can get in World of Warcraft is you can be a undead um, Death Knight, which really isn't the same, as well as a warlock, and that's basically it. Just the warlock, you can summon a demon, which is kind of like necromancy, but it's not like you know in Skyrim. You can be a necromancer, but the problem is that you have to kill the corpse first, and then it animates it, and then it dies after a while. I was like, well, the hell? I want to be there forever. I want an army of undead, not just one undead. Oh, Diablo 2 has really good necromancy. Diablo 3, really great necromancy. The Diablo series has actually done necromancy a little bit better than any other RPG I've seen so far. If there's a better one, hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or whatever and just say, hey, if you like necromancy, try this game. I'll give it a shot, you know. But not in World of Warcraft, though. I would like to have seen it in World of Warcraft, really, like, kind of tiptoe around it for some reason. And Diablo 3 is a game I'll be playing in the near future as well on stream, probably next year, 2024 maybe. I know it's still in 2022, but still 2022, but it's close to 2023. So probably maybe, well, I don't know, 2024, maybe the end of 2023. We'll see. I don't know how long Borderlands is going to take. I've only played what 3 sessions of Diablo or Diablo, 3 sessions of Borderlands 2, and we've only gotten so far into the stream. I mean, into the series. I mean, I haven't rescue Roland tomorrow night, so that's how far I am. There's still a lot to do in that game. We got to go try to get into Angel. We got to rescue her. We gotta, rescue um, Lilith at some point. And there's talks about maybe doing Tiny Tina's Adventures. It depends how interested in the game I am at the time when we get that far and how high of a level I'm at. When we finally defeat the vault baddies, the end of the end game guys, we'll see how high a level I'm at. If you're too far above level 30, the game it's too easy, get a lot of experience, so it's not really fun. It's just mostly about doing the story. Whereas if you move on to the next mode, you have to start all over again. And it sucks. So I don't know. We'll see how things are going when we get close to, when we finally kill Jack. Um, moving on to other video games. I talked about the Mario Kart series, like Mario 64, Mario Kart Double Dash. Mario on the Wii is very fun, but that was probably the last Mario Kart game I ever played. I never really got into the Wii U or the Switch. So I wanted to get the new Mario Kart because the Switch, because apparently it uploaded you allowed to go back in time and play some of the older tracks. But the one for the app does that too, but you don't get to choose your tracks. It's the one disadvantage of this game on the app. You don't get to choose. They choose the tracks for you. You get to play them as challenges. Whereas in the other games, like you could pick your tracks, pick your racers, etc. This one has little caveats with it. So, pros, take your good with your bad, I guess. Um, one of our favorite games I played a lot too was my first BioWare game, and strangely enough, it was not Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic. It was actually Dragon Age Origins for the PC, and it's a fun game. We'll be playing that too in 2024. Um, it is an older BioWare game, but it was probably one of the more interesting ones because, like I said earlier, it had stories that stretched out. You could pick whatever class you want, and other, it branch off and it goes further and further. But the fighting mechanics in the game are really bizarre, like just weird. I don't know how to describe it, but it you could pause the game and then choose the combat, how your combat would play out if you wanted to. You don't have to. You can change it to do something else. You can play it straight up without having this pause and overhead look and, oh, I want this guy to go here, have him do that. I want this guy to go here, do that. Have this woman go over here, have them heal, etc. You could code the game to have the characters act a certain way you want to do. Like you could have one of them be a healer and have a healing setup to be, um, a little bit different. Whereas you can, uh, what is it? You could heal and at a certain threshold. So they didn't have to be blowing all their magic on you right off the bat. They can just, save it for lower levels. Like, oh, you're close to 50%. Here, use this heal. Oh, you're at 25%. Here, I'll use my big heal. And you can also train them in their talent points, where to put them, how what do you want for their intelligence, etc. It's a good customizable game, but the characters are all same. They all have voice actors except for the lead, which is something that's really hard to do in some of the older games like Skyrim and Dragon Age Origins. But once you get to Fallout 4, you'll notice that the main leads have voice actors too now. And that's one thing I like about Star Wars: The Old Republic is they also have voice actors and actresses for their main characters. So you get both the same voice actors throughout the whole series. Like I'm sure BioWare says, "Hey, we got another script coming up. Can you voice these lines here?" And they'll go and they'll voice these lines, and they'll come back later in about several months, and they'll have another set of voice lines or dialogue to read, etc. So it's cool that they're still around doing that stuff. I can appreciate Star Wars: The Old Republic for having that, but you'll know that somewhere along the line they kind of switch to text dialogue for your character, but everybody else gets to talk. So it's like, well, we can only make them say so much. Why don't we just, do text dialogue instead, just to kind of cover our bases, so we don't have to read the same lines over and over again. Um, and then, there's a lot to do in Dragon Age Origins, but it's a very linear story, in that, well, you can pick which of the three paths to take after you do the second or third area, and then you split up and you do, the overall story arc. You have to go to three different places and ask for aid against the traitor. I can't remember his name, but he does the dumbest thing ever. It's like, so we're in the middle of a battlefield. You're the reinforcements. We could finish this right here and now, but you want to quit the field for whatever reason. I mean, I know you don't like the fact that your king is a boy who wants to prove himself, but what, why? Just why? It's the dumbest thing ever for a story motivation. I mean, I get it, you have to story, but it's just like there. I mean, I guess I never really got into it. Maybe there's something I didn't read or some kind of lore I didn't get to. I don't know. It's just one of the weirdest turns in history. Anyways, moving on to more other video games I played. Obviously, we did Skyrim last stream with Maka List. Skyrim I've logged in at least 1,000 hours of in that game, and it is fun to play. But as I found out, the longer I was playing this game, like, man, there's not a lot left to do in this game that I can think of. I mean, there is, but I really don't want to do everything. Like, well, now the next time I play it through, it'll just be the same stuff, only a different character doing different things. So we'll see how this plays out when the next time we come through with Skyrim later on in 2023, but maybe 2024. I don't know. Um, but yeah, there's a little bit to do. There's a lot to do, but it just doesn't seem so much when you get so far into the game. And what else? Fallout 3. I played that a couple times through. That's a game that doesn't have any voice acting on the antagonist side, I mean the protagonist side, but everybody else has got dialogue. It's a fun game to play through. If you haven't played that one, I suggest you play that. It's a little bit different in that picking points in the system requires a lot of thought, as well as good deeds do good things and bad deeds do access bad things. So it has a moral dilemma adjustment meter. So you can either be good or you can be evil. It depends on how you want to play. But if you're evil, you can only access some evil things, and if you're good, you can only access some good things. It's it's kind of like what's that game? System Shock. I think it's System Shock. That's an older game. Yeah, I think it's System Shock. Yeah, where you have to pick your points perfectly, or else you're gonna be, oops, I picked the wrong thing. Well, guess I can't get through this door. Oh well. But it's just how it is. And then obviously there's Fallout 4, which we'll be playing in a few months from now too. That game is fine, but it gets really repetitive after a while when Preston Garvey asks you to go save a settlement every time you finish a quest. Like, I just did this one like a few minutes ago. Oh, I gotta do another one. Oh, I gotta do another one. Oh, it's the same one over again. Son of it. It is so repetitive, but it's a fun game. The overall story though, is, and this has been pointed out by uh, other fans of Fallout 4, is it's a quest line from Fallout 3, but not so much so. So it's a quest line involving finding a hidden android and deciding whether or not that android should be set free or sent back to slavery. And moral dilemma. Who owns this robot? His robots are sentient, yada yada yada. You'll get the same voice actors from Skyrim and Fallout 4. Like there's one lady in particular who's the blacksmith in the first town you get in. She's the same leader of the railroad. It's the same voice actress, so it's still fun. It amuses me like no other, but it's a BioWare, or not BioWare. It's a Bethesda video game. So I have not played Fallout 74. I've thought about buying Fallout 74, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't like the whole online stuff, but who knows? Maybe someday I'll purchase it, and maybe someday I'll actually purchase the Elder Scrolls Online. I hear that game's pretty sweet too, but I haven't really put a lot of thought in that. And I don't. I haven't played these in a long time, but I have played sports games. I've played NHL 11 and 13 when I was really into hockey about 10 years ago. Well, a little bit left, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever. The point is, that was probably one of the more PlayStation 3 games I played. That was one of the reasons I bought a PlayStation 3 so I could play hockey, because I really, really got into it as an adult. We didn't have a lot of hockey growing up in my small town area. It wasn't popular, but you start getting it, and next thing you know, you're just really, really into it. And I was like playing NHL 11 like for hours, just making my own teams, going through the Stanley Cup, etc. It was fun. And then right now, there's the other fun game, and I've mentioned this quite a bit, is Star Wars: The Old Republic. I've played that game a lot in the past few years. I downloaded it, I believe, in 2017. 2017, I downloaded the game for the first time. It had been out for so long, and I'm like, oh, let's see what this is. Next, I am addicted and playing it constantly. This setup right here, all this is because of Star Wars: The Old Republic video game. It's all because of it. This whole thing, this channel, everything was that video game. It basically allowed me to, channel the dark side, understand Star Wars a lot better, get into it, understand philosophies of good and evil, what does it mean to be a Jedi? What does it mean to be a Sith? Etc. Exploring the emotions that they both have, what it takes to be a member of the Republic, what's the goods and pros and cons of both, imperial rule versus democratic rule, etc. Uh, it's more, to me, it's more stuff I read into than what actually might be on screen, but sure, it's the same dialogue and some of the stuff's pretty wooden and it's just the characters or animations are weird, but I like it. I like the voice actors. I like some of the romances are pretty cool. Everybody has their own philosophies on who the excuse me a second, who the Sith Juggernaut should, or Sith Warrior should go out with. Do people like Vet a lot? I know Vet is great. She's voiced by a Star Wars alum who does the voice of Queen Amidala in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and she does the original voice of Mission. So it's Vet. She's funny and hilarious. She's cute and charming. But Jace's a true Sith Lord when you turn into the dark side. She's vicious, violent, but she's very passionate, and I like her for that. It sucks though that they really didn't bring the cast too far back in your companions. They brought some. Don't get me wrong. There's some of them that have more say than others, but some don't, and it sucks. But it's still a fun game. I play the hell out of it. I'll be playing the hell out of it after we're done with Borderlands 2. We'll be playing with we'll be doing the Republic side, going through the lights or the Republic side quests for Knights of the Fallen Empire, stuff that happens after that, because I haven't seen the what happens on Osis only maybe once. I haven't seen anything else in it on that side, and I want to know what happens. I want to see what happens on the light side, so I want to do that on the channel, get an idea for it, and later in the future I want to do all 6 other remaining stories of the characters of Star Wars: The Old Republic. I want to do the Jedi Knight, Connoisseur, the Smuggler, the Sith Warrior, the Imperial Agent, the Bounty Hunter. Just the storylines. We're not going to do, obviously, Ilum through the rest of the game. We're just getting up through the chapters and getting those done. And that's all I want to do is just do them live, just so that people can appreciate, hey, I've never played Star Wars: The Old Republic. I want to know what this is like. Or I've never played the Jedi Connoisseur class. I want to see what that looks like, So we'll just do a story that way. And, we can mess around with it. We can do light side, dark side, or dark side, light side for reverses or whatever. It'll be fun. I can't wait to do that. And the most recent game in history that I fell in love with, and it kind of caused me to buy this new PC that I got newer years ago. It's probably garbage now compared to everybody else's, but was Cyberpunk 2077 when it first came out, and people just hated on that game. Bugs, glitches, etc., downloads, patches, yada yada yada. Oh, this looks stupid, blah blah blah. I don't like this, yada yada yada. And for a game that would games these days when they're forced out to the general public uh, are massively huge in that they are basically giant machines working parts of code and art and etc. And it takes months of decoding and bugging and testing and etc. just to make things work properly. And to push it out before it's been completed is the job of the publisher to make money off it, but it can shoot you in the foot really easily. I mean, look what happened to CD Projekt Red after it came out, Cyberpunk 2077. It hurt their reputation. It's like, well, you guys released The Witcher 3, man. That game was basically good on day one, yada yada. What's this crap? It's like they were forced to push it out. It's been delayed, but they had to do it. It wasn't like they wanted to do it, but they had to do it. Now they fixed it. Now people watched Edge Runners on Netflix and they're like, "Oh my god, Cyberpunk looks so cool! Let's go play Cyberpunk." And the game reviews just went through the roof as being a great game. I love it. Why didn't I play this back then? Yada yada. Because that's how it happened. It got released a year too soon, and people just swept it on the rug. And then all of a sudden, good publicity because of a anime that came out based on not even based on the show, just based on the location of the show. And now people were like, "Oh my god, it's so great! I love it." It's just you have to be there from the beginning. I know, but it was still a good game. The story was good. The dialogue was fairly decent. The characters are kind of lovable, kind of likable. Hell, I post on social media on my Facebook page. Everybody wants Morgan Freeman doing their voiceover or GPS or the voice inside their head. Well, I want I want Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand as my GPS or my uh, the voice in my head, because I think that would be so hilarious. Having somebody like that, just somebody to fight with in your head that actually can fight with in your mind with your thoughts is something cooler than having somebody just, I have a comforting, soothing voice, yada yada yada. That's what I want. Custom made mugs from the Cardinal State on Etsy. Anyways, wow, I've only gotten through 2 bullet points of my whole thing. My whole spiel on my favorite video games and my history of gaming in one video chat session. So, down to the last 2 minutes here. I guess you could say I've played from Star Wars games, the old Star Wars games. I've played Shadows of the Empire, the original Battlefront 1 for like the Xbox. And I've never really played. I played a little bit of Star Wars: The Knights of the Republic 1 and 2. We'll be playing those on stream sometime in 2023, so we'll play them all the way through. And I've played through Jedi Fallen Order. That game was fun. It reminded me a lot of Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. Didn't take too long to beat the game. Maybe about three, or not three, about 7 3-hour sessions. I don't know. It's been a while, but I love the game. I'm hoping that uh, Jedi Survivor is just as good. The only issue I have, and it's been going around the internet, where's Mira Net? Where is she? She was probably the coolest character in the game because she had a tragic story to go with her. And if you watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars, you go, oof, wow, okay, she was there. Ooh, that sucks. But I would like. She basically saved Cal and them at the end of the game. Spoilers. But I would have loved to. I like to see her in this game. I don't know. Maybe she left, or maybe Cal or maybe she fell in love with Cal, and Cal's like, "No, I have to be a Jedi. I can't be attached to, things. Even though since the Order is basically, gone, what's there to do? You can do whatever the hell you want. But then you're like, oh, I can be tempted by the dark side. Well, the dark side leads to strange powers one may not stand. Whatever." Anyways, I would love to see her in the game. I don't know if she's in or not. I haven't really done any digging. I really don't want to because I want to be surprised. Really, I want to, see the previews, but I want to play the game, just kind of find out on my own. But knowing my luck, somebody's going to spoil it. Anyways, that's my chat for today. Thanks all for tuning in. We'll do another chat session next Friday at same time. No. Yes, we'll do it next Friday, same time, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune in tomorrow night for a continuation of Borderlands 2, and we're going to rescue Roland. Follow me on social media at a Sith Lord Plays This, or just at a Sith Lord Plays on Twitter. And thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, yada yada, all the other plugs that people want to do. Until tomorrow night, all you Sith Lords, Darths, Acolytes, and Apprentices, remember, the Force will serve you well.